What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. You know our guest. He's the one and only Mike Wahle. You can find him on social media at Mike Wahle68, and of course, Process to Perform as well. We did our live show yesterday. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to do so. We've got so much more to get into today, though, so we're going to do it. But Mike, before we get there, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, Andy. Thanks for having me on. We had I got to go to Youngstown State this weekend, see my daughter play some soccer. Unfortunately, they lost last minute. They do golden goal in the playoffs.
Oh, man.
They do golden goal, which was awesome, but everybody thought it was two 10-minute overtimes. So ball hits the crossbar, bounces off, somebody knocks it in. So, everyone's like, okay, regroup, blah, blah, blah. And the ref blows the whistle, and it's like, there's just a fountain of tears from these poor girls who just realized the game's over. It was terrible.
That is brutal. Well, hopefully she's doing all right.
Yes.
Hopefully it sounds like it was a fun and entertaining game, but I know that doesn't make it any better when you have a heartbreaking loss like that. We saw a heck of a World Series game on Saturday too. That thing was one of the great games of all time. Speaking of heartbreaking losses for Toronto in that situation. Before we jump in, because we've got a lot of Packers stuff to get into, of course, but that's all depressing stuff.
Yeah.
The Brewers lost to the Dodgers in 4 games, clean sweep. You got annihilated in 4 games. The Blue Jays make it to the World Series and are multiple times this close to winning the World Series in Game 7, 2 games at home. Would you rather lose in a 4-game sweep in the NLCS or lose in heartbreaking fashion at the very last moment in the World Series?
Oh, I don't know what you're supposed to say here. I suppose you're supposed to say I'd rather lose at the very end because it gives you that means you were in it. But I feel like you should just, if you lose 4-0, you're like, I'm not good enough. Yeah, it's pretty obvious, right? So maybe that doesn't hurt as bad. I mean, I can imagine the Toronto guys. I mean, there's not enough Molson Ice or whatever in the country to take over that problem. God, that was a rough game.
That's a brutal loss. I think as a Brewers, it would have been awesome to get to the World Series, but I think I don't even know if I'm podcasting today. I think I'd still be wallowing upstairs, in bed, being like they were this close so many times to winning a World Series. That would have been brutal. But speaking of things that were brutal, Mike, we have a Packers game to discuss. A brutal in a very different way, a 3-point loss to Carolina at home after being 13.5-point favorites. And just for fun on top of it, a torn ACL for Tucker Kraft, which puts him out for the remainder of the season. We talked about it, obviously, on the live show, but we'll just start off, kind of key takeaways and just kind of gut feel from this game.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft getting injured is the biggest, obviously in a day full of bad things. That's the worst thing that could have possibly happened. I do think he is the linchpin of the offense. He feels like the personality on that offense and I think Josh Jacobs is that too. But as we talked about on the live show, Josh can't block and run at the same time. But Tucker Kraft with his yards after contact. With kind of the electricity and the spark that everybody else is feeding off of, whether it's the play caller, whether it's the quarterback, or just the people around him. Like, people are excited to be on the field with that guy right now. And for him to not be there anymore, I think it leaves a lot more questions than they have answers for, certainly coming out of that football game, Andy, both in the running game, but maybe most importantly as the outlet in the passing game for Jordan Love.
It's a cruel sport. You have 1 week where he makes his presence known on a national stage, has one of the best games of the season, certainly for the tight end position against Pittsburgh, Sunday Night Football. Green Bay gets a big emotional win against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers on the road. Everything's looking great. And then a week later, you lose by 3 to the Panthers at home. And the same guy that broke out a week ago is now done for the season. Things change in a blink of an eye. And just such a, it's just a play like that where he's coming across and Sean Ryan gets, cut underneath, and to avoid the block, he goes backwards, kicks upwards, and happens to hit Tucker Kraft, and he tears his ACL. Just a crazy dominoes falling down sort of situation, and just a brutal injury for Green Bay.
You just think it's going to be like a hyperextension at worst, and it turns out to be, just the worst possible injury for him. Feel bad, obviously, for him and his family. Luckily, I always just say this now, like we're so lucky. Like when I was a kid, ACL meant you were done, and now it's, I mean, it sucks, but he's certainly going to come back and have a stellar career, or continue along the path of having a stellar career that he's already had. But I guess if you wanted to say glasses half full, this team is. We just talked about in the live show, Andy. Like this team is really struggling outside of our best players making great plays.
Yeah.
In other words, we're not very good in the run game from a consistency standpoint. We have too many dumb penalties, and it doesn't feel like without explosive plays, we're going to go down, 5 yards at a time, because there's, and this is the NFL, you're going to have a holding penalty, you're going to have an offside, you're going to have a sack, something. That's kind of what we saw yesterday. So the one thing that can happen now is that whether it's Romeo Doubs or Matthew Golden, whether it's Josh Jacobs or a reevaluation of the run game, maybe it's, adding a sixth offensive lineman, maybe it's changing up the offensive line, something that we talked about on the last show. Maybe there's something that sparks like, hey, we have to evolve from here, because our number one kind of, he's not their best player, but he's like the number one guy right now. The spark guy is not there. Who's going to be that guy? Who's the tough guy in the room? Who's the guy that's going to set the tone? Who's the guy that's going to try to finish his blocks? Who's the guy that's going to, always fall forward downfield? Who's that guy who, they have guys that have been that historically, Josh Jacobs, and certainly when given the opportunity, he will be that guy. But who in that receiving room, who in the offensive line room is going to just take over and go, you know what, enough of this. This is not the kind of team we want to be. A Super Bowl championship team has a personality of dominance. Who's going to establish it?
It's a great question. I hope they figure out a good answer to it. Mike, there's been times I look back to the games that Jordan Love were out a season ago, where they basically reinvented a run offense for Malik Willis and Josh Jacobs, and they go and win 2 games back to back with what I thought was an extremely creative play design, play called, and executed game on a very short turnaround for a quarterback they had just acquired a couple weeks before that. There were times when Jordan was first taking over that I thought some of the stuff that they were getting with open looks for players was phenomenal. And I thought even going back to when Aaron was winning his back-to-back MVPs and sort of revitalizing his career might be harsh, but like, again, playing at a super high level again, it felt like Matt was just a little bit of ahead of the opposing defense and the defensive coordinator. And right now, it just doesn't feel that way at all. It doesn't feel like they can find anything that gets going. It feels stagnant. It feels a little bit in lacking imagination at times. Maybe some of that's off base. Maybe that's just feel and not actual what's happening. But why has it just been so hard for this offense to either find an identity or get something going that works, or just, again, have maybe some of that creativity and ingenuity that we've seen from his teams in the past?
I think it's because Josh Jacobs isn't averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think that's why it is. I think it's just too hard to get yards in this league, and you've got light boxes sometimes. You've got arguably an offensive line that's not playing as well as it did last year, despite all the upgrades and the movement. And I think that's a huge deal. Josh Jacobs isn't having the year. He's still an all-pro running back. We still see the talent. Like it's not like he hasn't lost a step.
No.
The other thing that happens with this, Andy, it just happens. You remember the play yesterday where Jordan Love actually fakes the handoff and keeps the ball, runs out to the left, ends up sliding for no gain?
Yep.
Well, if he throws the football to Wilson coming around on the wheel, it's a touchdown. He just doesn't throw it. Now, I don't know why he doesn't throw it. I don't know if he's even allowed to throw it. Like, I don't know if that's part of the design. But the way they ran that's a touchdown. He didn't throw the football. So there's things that are happening. I mean, Romeo Doubs is open in the end zone on a bang 8, and Jordan Morgan gives up a pressure. No, excuse me, that wasn't Jordan Morgan's sack. But somebody else gave up pressure in the middle. He had to roll it to right. He misses the bang 8. He's wide ass open. The play that was designed correctly. They're just not executing. So there's so many times in this league where you feel like you're getting these free yards, and I do think that we get a fair amount of free yards. But I also think that the way that we execute, whether it's the fumbled snap, the penalties, the sack, the pressures, whether it's just the lack of execution on the bubble screen, the dropping the screen pass, all this stuff accumulates. And it's not like the Carolina Panthers have heartbeats. It's not like they're just a bunch of corpses walking around on the other, lying around the other side. They're going to play hard, and they played really, really hard. So if you show up to a game, you make a bunch of mistakes, and you don't play hard, you're going to lose football games in the National Football League. Like, this is a tough league, man. There's really not a team in this league right now, parity-wise, where you're just like, hey, no matter what, we're winning the football game week in and week out, right? Like the parity that they're going for is they're doing a good job of it at the current state. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the National Football League. You talk about 10 years ago, you're talking about 8 good quarterbacks. There's 15, 16, 17 good quarterbacks now, right? Maybe more that you feel like can win you a football game at any moment. So I just think there's a lot going on in this league that you have to show up with your A game physically, mentally, emotionally, but you also have to be able to execute on some of this stuff. And I know I've spoken too long about this, but it does really start with, like, if you're a team that has a Josh Jacobs, whether the fans like it or not, you're a running football team because he's an all-pro. And you're an idiot if you're stupid if you don't use him. It's like you have Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. You can throw the ball a bunch. You sure as hell better run the football. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, same thing. You got Jonathan Taylor. If you got that talent, you run the football. That's it. And so you got to figure out a way to do that. And right now, they just don't do that at a clip where it's consistent enough to design an offense around.
I do feel like as fans, we get main character syndrome, and the only thing that matters to us is the Packers, and we forget that the other team sometimes is, they're on their own journey and trying to make their own way in the league and trying to win that game as well. And we get blinders sometimes to some of that stuff. Does this team lack in patience? We've seen, I thought against Arizona, they were maybe a little bit too aggressive trying to go down the field when they needed to take the underneath stuff. I thought they did a tremendous job against Pittsburgh, taking the underneath stuff and staying, within the down and distance. And then in this game, it just felt like, again, the defense was set up to kind of give you some of the short stuff. Although I thought they did a good job of covering some of that stuff up too. But do they need a little bit more patience, or is it maybe not that?
I thought the Panthers did a great job of, for the most part, of covering up the deep and really the deep drive stuff across the middle. I think they did a really good job on that. But the difference in this game, my opinion, was early on, the entire first half, they were rally tackling, whether it was the defensive end, the corner, the linebacker. You threw it to that flat or you threw the check down, like they were getting on it fast. And they were making you, like, the whole Vic Fangio idea, like, we're going to make you go 80 every single time. They were trying to do that. And I think they showed the National Football League and they showed Packers and Packers fans, like, that's why that defense got so popular, because it's tough to drive 80 yards, 5 yards at a time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have sacks. You're going to have pressures. You're going to have holding calls. Like, you're going to have drop passes. Like, those things happen. And when they do, and when they do in bunches, like they did yesterday with the Packers, you start looking pretty incompetent, because if, in the National Football League, explosive plays win games. You start looking at, like, turnovers are super important. Explosive plays are super important. And if you're not winning both those battles, it's hard to win. And unfortunately, I think we certainly lost the first one yesterday. And then, I don't know what the count was as far as explosive plays or how we're going to define that. But aside from that deep ball from Christian Watson, I don't really feel like there was, they didn't really take the top off the defense too often. So it's just a very, very tough way to play football. I'm an option guy from the Naval Academy. Like, I can do that all day long, but most offenses aren't designed to do that.
No, they are not. It does feel like they have to have a little bit of a better solution there. As far as long plays go, Dobbs had a long of 30, Musgrave had a long of 21 late in the game. Christian had a long of 52. Their long in the run game was 18. And as we heard yesterday, they haven't had a run of over 20 yards besides one by Jordan Love so far this year. So
that's a crazy stat, by the way.
Yep.
I mean, Josh Jacobs is on your team. Wilson's good. I mean, they got good backs. I wonder how many teams that's true for.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's many. I'll have to maybe do some research there, but I can't imagine it's many teams that have that as a stat, to be honest. A lot of fans are frustrated with the amount of horizontal play calls within this offense. We saw a lot of the screens to the outside in the past. We didn't see it yesterday, and I don't think we saw it the week before either. We haven't seen the jet sweeps, the end arounds, the reverses in these last couple games. But it feels like Matt wants to continue to stretch the field horizontally. I'll let you answer in a second. My opinion is, as important as it is to keep safeties honest down the field with some vertical plays every now and again, you also want to keep defenses honest horizontally. But a lot of those plays have not been maybe working the way that ideally you would like them to. Is it too much? Is it an issue, or is it a non-factor for you?
I don't think it's, again, everything is based on, what the defense is giving you in execution. And so, a lot of the complaints that you hear after the fact are like, taking it, there's context behind why, like Matt LaFleur is a really good professional coach, and he's doing things because he feels like the defense is going to give him opportunities in these areas. And whether you execute that or not, you go to the game and I can point to a player or a block on damn near every play is the reason why something didn't work. It's not because the play was a poor play call. Having said that, you want to, like, let's just make this obvious. You want to, if you could throw the ball down the field, just let it rip every single time, you would, but you can't because they have deep safeties, right? They'll play 2 safeties or whatever. You'd love to run the ball right down the A gap every time because it's a direct path, and that's what the Panthers did, and they did it actually quite effectively. But we're not very good at it, so we can't do it. But we also don't run crack toss plays anymore. We don't run a lot of the pin and pull stuff outside. We just don't run it. We used to run it, years ago. We don't run it anymore. So we used to run it. Zach Tom's very good at it, right?
Very good at it.
But they just don't run that play anymore. So now they run this kind of like, handoff, horizontal, middle to outside zone play that really is not very effective. We don't block it very well. And Matt LaFleur is going, all right, we still have to stretch the defense. How are we going to do that? Well, we can run the jet sweep with Golden. We can run the bubble screen. So to make sure those Apex players are trying to play honest, like they can do all that stuff. But again, it's like, I know I keep going back to it, but I've been in these rooms. I've done the meetings. I've game planned. If you can't run the football downhill, you got a problem. And they don't have an answer for the most basic thing, which is like, how are we going to get Josh Jacobs 100 yards? Like that is the most I guarantee they go into every Monday meeting going, how are we going to get Josh Jacobs 100 yards this week? I guarantee that's how they start every damn meeting now. And it's like, what do we want to do? And because they don't do some of the stuff they used to, and they're not good at some of the other stuff anymore, it just becomes increasingly difficult to, find the collection of plays, Andy, that makes sense, without, if you don't win the game, if you don't score 35, with this talent in Green Bay, with this fan group, everyone's going to be pissed off.
A lot of that going around on Monday morning, that's for sure. We talked about the loss of Tucker Kraft. It's a brutal run after the catch situation where you're losing one of your huge weapons, the linchpin, the guy who brings the intensity, the physicality, sets the tone, and also is a pretty solid run blocker, and certainly better than Luke Musgrave, who's probably going to get the vast majority of his snaps at that spot, which further complicates your ability to try to get Josh Jacobs 100 yards rushing week in and week out. So I want you to put on your offensive play design and offensive coordinator hat.
Yep.
You've got no Jaden Reed right now. Dontavian Wicks is still a little bit banged up. We're not sure the situation with Matthew Golden. He left the game with a shoulder injury, and as we're recording this, we don't know the status of that. Tucker Kraft is now out for the year. You're struggling to run block. You've got a really great running back in Josh Jacobs. You've got no Marshawn Lloyd. How are you building this offense? What's your bread and butter? What's your go-to? How do you evolve this offense somehow with the loss of your linchpin on offense in Tucker Kraft?
Is Aaron Banks going to be healthy? I think that's kind of an important question, right?
He'll start, but as far as how healthy he is, I cannot guarantee anything.
That's a great way to answer that. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I would probably bring in Belton and put him at tight end and have a package out of that we can start dealing a little bit more out of a heavy package, because I don't know how many teams are built for it, just from a pound standpoint. Like, I don't know how many third linebackers can hold up against a guy that size. I think having a guy like Belton on the edge versus a defensive end or an outside linebacker is an incredible mismatch in the run game. I think it gives you extra pass protection that you're, quite frankly, already giving. Like, half the damn plays you're chipping guys out for on like long releases anyway. So it's not like you're losing that much from a game from a pass standpoint, and you're going to get that much more out of pass pro. And I just think that opens up opportunities to create single safety chances for Romeo Dobbs, for Golden if he's healthy, obviously for these other guys, for Christian Watson. So I would love to get into a space. I guess I would put it this way, Andy. I want to get into a space where I want the safeties to be defined pre-snap. Now, I know that advanced quarterback play, a lot of times they're going to be able to define that pre-snap just by, are they like this or like that, so on and so forth. But I think we can really dictate safety play by bringing in extra offensive line, going to jumbo 12. And that allows us to use Luke Musgrave much more so as the pass option that he really is, and not having to do put your hand in the ground dirty work. And I just think that gives you a very defined box. That's going to give you a very defined front, and it allows you to make adjustments where you're like, I don't really care what you do up front. You just don't have, if you go 5 down line, I'm throwing the ball to Christian Watson all day, Romeo Dobbs all day. I feel really good about that. You know, I feel, because I still got two receivers in the game. I got a tight end, I got a jumbo tight end, I got 2 receivers, I got Josh Jacobs. I love that as it, if not as your main offense, at least as something I'm going to run for 2, 3, 4 plays in a row, as many series as possible.
I'm right there with you. And I want as much bulk on that line as possible. I'm probably going Sean Ryan over Jordan Morgan in that situation, and add Belton as the 6th offensive tackle, and just as many. There's not many people movers on that line, Mike, but as big as you can get, I'm a little bit for it. And again, I know big just doesn't solve it, but I want a little bit more physicality up front. I think Belton's a great answer to that. And I do think, we've seen a lot of the success around the league with the 6 offensive line groups. I think it's a great way. And then to your point, having those 2, you're missing your kind of primary slot receiver right now in Jaden Reed, and your other, guy over the middle and Tucker Kraft that's so good. So can you get some of those one-on-ones on the outside with Dobbs and Watson? And if so, like you said, you feel pretty good about those opportunities. And a lot of times when you go play action out of heavy, we see the quarterback just inherently get a little bit more time because everyone's playing the run first. And then again, you've got to fight through that extra offensive lineman, maybe a chip from Luke Musgrave, maybe a chip from the running back as well. And it maybe gives you some time to develop those plays down the field. And after showing hopefully that you can run the ball up until that point, makes them commit a little bit more. I'm with you. I think it makes a ton of sense. Hey friends, Andy Herman here. Time to get our sleeper picks in for this upcoming Sunday. And I'm going with the international game, which is always fun, but it's always a little bit more exciting when you add some sleeper picks on top of it. Tried a little different philosophy this week. I'm excited about it. We're going Michael Penix, longest completion, greater than 33.5 yards. Darnell Mooney, longest reception, greater than 17.5 yards. And Tyler Warren, longest reception, fewer than 19.5 yards. I'm excited about this one. Get your picks in over at Sleeper. And the best part is that you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing that code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. Available in over 25 states nationwide. So what are you waiting for? Get your Sleeper picks in today. Hey friends, Andy Herman here. Before we get back to Mike Wahle, who is absolutely amazing, by the way, just shout out to Mike for all these incredible film breakdowns, coming on with the live Q&A on Mondays, and then of course with our regular podcast as well. If you haven't checked those out yet, make sure to do so. But before we get back to Mike, just want to shout out our 2 sponsors for today's show. First of all, Luigi's Frozen Pizzas. If you haven't checked these out yet, what are you waiting for? A little bit of buzz, by the way, that there's going to be some news around Luigi's Pizza. So keep an eye out for that. The best way to do so is to follow them on social media at Luigi's Pizza, and make sure you're checking out luigispizza.com as well. You can see their whole line of pizzas, also the store locator, so you can find the Luigi's Pizza nearest to you. Find them in your local grocer in the freezer section. They're absolutely delicious. You're going to want to get a bunch and celebrate our Victory Mondays right alongside of me by enjoying a delicious Luigi's frozen pizza. Also, Alchemy Wealth Management, retirewithryan.net. This is a unbelievable offer. You get to go to their website, retirewithryan.net, and for free, do one of 2 things. Either download all the great materials they have for you to just on your own help you with your financial future, or what I highly recommend, set up that free consultation with Ryan. He's going to help you on your retirement journey, on your financial journey, wherever you are at with your walk, whether that be near retirement, retired already, or just starting to think about it. Wherever you are at, he's going to be able to help you. Check it out over at retirewithryan.net. Ryan Nelson, Alchemy Wealth Management. Cannot recommend it enough. And a huge thank you to Ryan for partnering with us and also providing that free service to all of our viewers. Now it is time to get back to the one and only Mike Wahle.
It's worked for 30 years because people don't know how to match up against it, and what that concept does is it allows the quarterback to know immediately, do I have a one-on-one outside, or am I going to run the football? Because it's literally an either or. You can't bracket coverage without two safeties. So if you're going to go man over there, and we've got guys that you feel good, like Romeo Dobbs beats guys man. Now he might just beat him for an in or a slant or a glance. Maybe he's not meeting him for a not. Maybe Christian Watson you put out there for like a go route or some of the deeper stuff. But you have both sides, and once you do that, once you define that, the game gets really easy. And I know that's something that when we were playing back in the day. When it got rough, we would just go, you know what? Like Sherman was like, screw this, man. Kevin, you're going in, put the bacon package in. We're going to run this. We're going to run one play. And as soon as you try to load up everybody over there, we're going to throw it deep to Corey Bradford. And if you guys try to put two safeties up, we'll just go backside and run the stutter. I mean, it's such a simple answer, but the other thing it does is it forces the defense to game plan something new and practice something new that just takes away from practice time from everything else. So,
Well said.
I don't know that. I don't know. Given the amount of now we're just talking about it. Like, given the size that they have on the bench in the offensive line room now, it's kind of wild they haven't done it yet, isn't it?
Yes, I would totally agree. At the beginning of the year, with all the injuries they had, I could maybe understand it a little bit more. These past couple weeks, I was a little bit surprised we haven't seen some version of it. We did see, I want to say, 2 to 3 plays last year of jumbo, or we saw an extra lineman come in. It's not in their playbook. We've seen them run it. Usually it was more in like goal line sort of situations, but it is in their playbook. At least it was last year. I don't think we've seen a snap of it so far this year.
It's time, baby.
It is time. I want to jump over to defense. We spent a lot of time on offense. I'll be honest. Like, normally I'm the one that's kind of defending of like, hey, they allowed 16 points. Not on the defense in this one. You're going to win in the NFL. I look at this one, 16 points allowed. I kind of expected Carolina to have like 8 minutes on time of possession. Green Bay actually won it barely. It was like basically a split 50-50 time of possession. They generated a turnover with the interception for Xavier McKinney. Bryce Young started 4 for 4 for 36 yards. They got no points out of it. After that, went 7 of 16 for 66 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. And Green Bay lost. Now the Panthers ran the ball really well, 33 for 163, basically a 5-yard average and 2 touchdowns. But the big thing is for Green Bay's defense, twofold for me, is number one was the run defense. Number two, when it came to negative plays or explosive plays, or again, however we want to define it, 1 sack, which was the forced fumble, which actually turned into a positive play, because they recovered it and went forward. So that's actually not a negative play at the end result of it, but it's sack, I guess. 1 tackle for loss by Micah Parsons, 1 interception by Xavier McKinney, and that was it. No other pass breakups, no other tackles behind the line of scrimmage, no other sacks, no other picks, no other anything. And when they needed to stop at the end of the game, they couldn't quite get the stop, and they went down and drove to get the game-winning field goal.
Huge run at the end of the game too. Like,
huge run at the end of the
unbelievable. Game. Didn't fill the gap right, but yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
So on the one hand, stop the passing attack, got a turnover, only allowed 16 points. Maybe not the worst thing in the world, right? On the other hand, there's some signs here: run defense, lack of big plays, couldn't get the stop at the end. Or I'm like, So how do you look at the defensive performance in this game?
I think you do have to acknowledge that 16 points isn't very many. You should, like John Fox, when I was with Carolina, is like, if they don't score 19, if you score 19, we will win every game.
Yeah.
It's like, what? It's like, yeah, we will never give up more than 19 points. We will never get more than 18 points, excuse me. So like if you score, that is a winning round of football, right? Yeah. The no sacks thing was, I think, a function of, one, he gets rid of the ball fast. They're not going to put him in a position where he has to drop back too much and he's on his own. But like, to be fair, they had chances to win and they didn't win. And Josh Nijman's over there playing against Rashawn Gary, and he's not sacking on Josh Nijman. I'm going like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
That was, you would have thought, right? I mean, you would have thought.
Common sense, yeah.
Here's the other thing that is that bothered me, and it goes to your tackles for loss deal. The Carolina Panthers are 3 deep on the front offensive line. They're missing 3 starters, I think maybe 4 by the end of the game. And they're swapping out guards. I mean, it's romper room over there. And because they've been coached to just stay square to the line of scrimmage, just cover a guy up. They're not even moving guys. They're just not letting them go. They're getting engaged, staying right there. And this new Rico Dowdle kid is, jumping back and forth, looking like Le'Veon Bell, hesitating a lot of scrimmage, banging through a hole for 5, banging a hole for 9. All of a sudden gets a 20-yard gain, breaking through some tackles. And it's such a simple concept, but our offensive line and that room has not grasped that yet, and this is kind of the next standard of success. If you want to run for 130 yards for running around 160 yards total, just get in front of your guy and don't take an angle. Stay on your track the entire time. Give the running back an opportunity to make plays. Don't create the lane for him. I thought they did a really good job of that. I think coming into the game, they showed even in their last game, they were phenomenal in the interior offensive line of just sticking to their blocks and be able to run their feet, keeping pressure on that person so they can't fall off and make plays. They really did a nice job of that yesterday against our guys in the interior. We don't have the biggest, baddest group of defensive tackles on the planet, and it kind of showed up a little bit yesterday in the run game, although, again, I don't want to beat these guys up. They played pretty well. I just think it's never going to be good enough, right, with this defense. Once you set these expectations of that Detroit game and then the Washington game, this team is always going to be chasing the expectations of those first couple of weeks.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, I think you talked about it on the last show, the energy, everything, it's just not there. And I think it permeates through the entire team.
Yeah, I think so too. They got to find a way to get that spark back. All right, a couple quick ones before we get you out of here. A lot of frustration with Matt LaFleur on Sunday and Monday. What does Matt need to do better? Is there anything that he needs to change? Is there anything that the Packers need to change for him? Does he need to give up play calling? Where are you at with Matt and what he can do differently?
Yeah, I think the hard thing is we talked about this the last time. If they go out in the second half and they have a bunch of success, then you just kind of go, it's okay, this is kind of what they do. This is their. And while I don't think that players, I would never like to say that players play like their coaches. I do think that there is something to that. The way that you prepare, what you prioritize, whether it's how you show up, like I said, I made an offhand on comment on here. It's I don't like how much he cares about his facial hair, or I don't care how much, it bothers me. He's so well groomed all the time. What are we prioritizing, right? My coaches used to sleep in cots for 2 hours a night and they look like they're always disheveled. This guy looks like he came out of a, goddamn makeup salon ready to go to the show every day. He's just a handsome dude. So you do wonder about the level of kind of detailed preparation, how hard watching the Carolina Panthers, how hard they played versus how hard we played. You do start, and this isn't the first time, but this is one of those games where it's fair to go are we doing things the right way to prepare for football games? As far as the play calling goes, Andy, I think the group, we talked about it last show, I think the group is responsible for putting together their game plan. I think their game plan more often than not is really good. I think this is a very, very, I think this is a extremely well thought out and well put together game plan. The plays that are on that play sheet are excellent for the most part, and there's a lot of them. And he puts players in positions to be successful. When you lose a Tucker Kraft, when you use a Reed, when you all of a sudden are having problems running the football, that play sheet looks blurry. Some of these plays don't go as planned. You get Musgrave out in the flat. He gets tackled right. Do you remember when Musgrave he checked out? He got the flat route on the left in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Everybody in the stadium. I'm not trying to shit on the guy, right? Everybody in the stadium knew he was getting tackled before the first down. It was one-on-one. Everybody in the stadium knew he was going to get tackled. Everybody in the stadium knew Tucker Kraft wasn't going to get tackled. And all of a sudden, that's a different play, isn't it? All of a sudden, that was a great job. And that's sometimes the difference in these situations. It's how fast can you adjust for your best yards after catch guy, bust his ACL? How fast do you adjust from that? How fast do you adjust? I guess the real question with the Matt LaFleur thing is like, how fast we can adjust to the fact that they haven't got 6 offensive linemen. We can't get our, top 5 running back in the National Football League 100 yards on a consistent basis. Like, when are we going to figure that one out? I think that would be the biggest question for me as far as play calling responsibilities.
You and me both. That to me is still, as we've talked about, 1A on my list of issues for this team. Kicker issue, kicker controversy, or stick with McManus?
Yeah, that's tough. Is there a suggestion that he's maybe still injured, or are people saying that to get him off the field?
Yeah, he practiced in full both Thursday and Friday and kicked in back-to-back weeks. And Matt certainly didn't make the excuse of like, he did say he's going through his own thing or whatever. I don't know if that was like mentally just not making field goals or like physically there's an issue there, but he did practice in full the last 2 days of the week. And, physically he didn't look like there was an ailment or an issue. I mean, the 2 that he's missed the last couple of weeks, it's not, I mean, the one you can maybe say like, well, the 57-yarder, the injury played a factor. Like the other ones have been like less than mid 40-yarders. And I don't think it played a major, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. If there's any, listen, with the kicker, because it's such an important position, if there's any suggestion that like he's not 100%, you've got a guy that's making kicks, let the other guy kick. That's my opinion.
I'm right there with you. Packers, Eagles. Quick thoughts on that one. What you're looking forward to? Packers 2.5-point favorites, Mike. Because Vegas always gets it right when the Packers are 13.5-point favorites. So hopefully it goes better when they're 2.5-point favorites. Yeah,
this will be a really good. And this is kind of what this is a really good test for the Green Bay Packers. They didn't have an answer for Bryce Young in Bryce Young running the football. They did not have an answer, and now you get Jalen Hurts coming in, and I know he doesn't run the football as much as he used to, but I remember a Monday night game a couple of years ago where he ran a lot against us. Yep. So I think that's something to watch. How they're going to deal with that is always the question. The Eagles seem to be figuring some things out last week. Obviously I think they're on a bye this week, so give them some time to prepare. But remember, the Eagles are kind of going through it too. They got their own little locker room drama. Who's going to get the football? How much they getting it? Are they doing this? How good their offensive line's playing? Is their RPO? Cam Jurgens is out. Their center's not playing as well. I mean, they've got some stuff going on up there too. I think the bye week will probably help them a lot, unfortunately. And this is going to be. I think they're a top 5 team. So the Packers want to be a top 5 team. This is one of those games they got to win.
The old Ric Flair, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. This will be a good opportunity for them to do that this week. Philly, as we're recording this, has already made 3 trades before the deadline. Michael Carter at corner, Jair Alexander at corner, and then Jalen Phillips, the defensive end.
I saw that Jalen Phillips. He's a good player now. He's on a bad team down in Miami, but he's a good player. He's been injured a lot, but he's good when he's healthy. Good player.
Yeah, so they've added 3 players already, and sort of stocking up for that stretch run, and we'll see if it makes an impact against Green Bay. Mike, I cannot thank you enough. You're the absolute best. Where can we find all of your amazing work, and anything else you want to talk about on the way out?
Andy, you can find me at Process to Perform on YouTube. Certainly, you're going to be on the Pack a Day podcast channel as well. Thanks again for hosting me on your platform. These are fun times, and I certainly enjoy talking ball with you. So we'll keep it up.
Right back at you, my friend. Hopefully next week we have a lot more fun stuff to talk about. No injuries and a big win against Philly would be ideal. Follow him at Mike Wahle 68. Go do it. He's the best. You're going to want to follow him on all social media platforms. Also, again, me at Andy Herman NFL. That's going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.